Assalamu alaikum.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
صلى الله عليه وسلم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا من سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. That is, verily, all praise is for Allah. We seek His help and His forgiveness. We seek refuge in Allah from the evil of our own souls and from our bad deeds. Whomsoever Allah guides, none can lead astray, and whomsoever Allah leaves to stray, none can guide. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his slave and his messenger. Dear believers, I greet you once again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. SubhanAllah, Allah has blessed us to see another Friday, Jumuah Friday. And we don't take this blessing for granted. I think there have been like 6 janazas this week. The last being a 23-year-old. SubhanAllah. So we don't take life and the blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us to be here for granted, and we should take advantage of it. So hopefully this reminder is something that we can take advantage of, first and foremost for myself, and for you all and who all will listen, inshallah. Dear believers, as we see what is happening around the world and in our own land and in our own nation, I wanted to remind us today that Allah is the one whom we work for, and Allah is the one whom we trust. And the ultimate goal of the believer is to gain the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Only when we truly submit to Him can we begin to reach our highest potential as khalifas on the earth, leaders on the earth, those entrusted to uphold justice. Excuse me. To uphold justice, to uphold wisdom, excellence in all aspects of life. Our purpose is not simply just to exist, but rather our purpose is to shape the world in the way that reflects Allah's guidance. Striving for a civilization that embodies His mercy and His power. But how can we fulfill this responsibility if we have grown comfortable with the world that mirrors the ignorance of Jahiliyyah days of our Prophet ﷺ? A society where corruption is normalized, discrimination is enhanced and encouraged, where lust sells and modesty is mocked, where the belief in God is reduced to whatever suits someone's personal desires. Have we accepted a system that strips us from our divine potential, making us consumers instead of creators, followers instead of leaders? If so, then we must ask ourselves, have we truly understood what it means to say La ilaha illallah? There is no God but God. We live in a society full of idols. What does that mean? Not just statues that you worship, but idols nowadays can be devices. Idols nowadays can be clothes or name brands. Idols nowadays can be celebrities or stars. Right? Our idols, more than not, oftentimes, most often, are our desires, unchecked. Right? Many people worship their desires unchecked. They don't perceive it, and sometimes we don't perceive it. But if your desire becomes ahead of your obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that's worship. Many times we hold things equal, if not more important, sometimes, than our obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're subject to our feelings at the time. So whatever I'm feeling at the time is how I dictate my worship is, or how I dictate I believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I believe in God and the broader society. Depends on how I'm feeling at the time. Whereas Muslims should challenge those things that bring our attention away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And we should affirm those things that bring our attention towards the consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to ask if something is keeping us away from our belief, or keeping us away from our prayers, keeping us away from our highest potential, we have to at least ask questions. At least ask questions as to why am I doing this? Why do I put so much trust in this? Why do I put so much effort and so much of my potential in this, if it's not leading me to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And then those questions will birth answers. That's the first start. Ask the questions, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you those answers. But we must first ask those questions. And if something is good for us, then we affirm it. Ramadan is good for us. Fasting is good for us, so we affirm it. You don't say to somebody, why are you fasting? What you fasting for? Somebody else that doesn't understand that will say that. But in those situations, we affirm our belief in fasting and our understanding of the importance of our fast, because we know that it aligns our will with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's will. And that's the highest pinnacle. So our consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and making sure that these challenges in life align with our consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't mean just, or doesn't mean only praying and coming to the masjid. We want those things. But this consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should affect all aspects of our lives. All aspects of our lives, from the simplest things to the biggest things. Right? When we get dressed to come to Jumuah, are we conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? The shirt that I put on, am I conscious that it covers my backside when I'm sitting in a vulnerable position? And so that I don't draw attention away from the message that's being said? And I cover my modesty? Am I conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How I clean myself, how I come, and how I smell decent? Present myself in a decent way? Am I conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in my day-to-day job? Am I working? What am I doing? What am I putting my effort and my time to? Most, does it align with my consciousness? Does it align with my wanting, my desire to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? These are questions we have to ask ourselves. And when we align ourselves with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants for us, and we align our actions and our work and our deeds to pleasing and the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you never get your feel of that. You know, we have bad addictions and we have good addictions. A bad addiction will consume you, and now everything you do revolves around and centers around that thing. You can't let it go. It affects your life. It affects how you're able to move, how you're able to form relationships and whatnot. But a good addiction, being addicted to the pleasure and pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how can you not grow to your highest potential? You'll never stop growing. You'll never get your fill. You'll never have enough of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's pleasure. Never. And it'll take you in directions, it'll move you to the middle of the Sirat al-Mustaqim, the middle of the straight path leading to success, the ultimate success. It's a ripple effect. And it won't be easy. It doesn't mean that this path is going to be easy to really align your consciousness, your actions, your day-to-day life with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and pleasing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We can see this in the seerah of our Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. When he went to Taif, fleeing, trying to get away from the Meccan society that's persecuting him and trying to find a safe haven, before he gets to Medina, he goes to Taif, right outside of Mecca. And these are his distant cousins. These are his distant relatives. They're not just some random people. And he comes and he does his dawah, he professes that this is the truth. And what do? They stone him almost to death. Blood dripping from his body. Everyone takes a part in stoning this man. His shoes soaked with blood. You can hear it squashing as he runs away. The most horrible time in his life, he says. And what prayer? What does he say to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam makes a prayer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after this treacherous situation. He says, "To you, my Lord, I complain of my weakness. Lack of support and humiliation I am made to receive. Most compassionate and merciful, you are the Lord of the weak, and you are my Lord, to whom you leave me. To whom do you leave me? To a distant person who receives me with hostility, or to an enemy you can give power over me? You have given power over me. As long as you are not displeased with me, I do not care what I face. I would, however, be much happier with your mercy. I seek refuge in the light of your face, by which all darkness is dispelled, and both this life and the hereafter are put in the right course against incurring your wrath, or being the subject of your anger. To you I submit until I earn your pleasure. Everything is powerless without your support. Ameen. So our Prophet ﷺ, we can learn that in this tumultuous time, he's concerned that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is displeased with him. But he says that if you are not displeased with me, it doesn't matter what horrors befall me. It doesn't matter what situation I'm in. As long as you are pleased with me, I know, I have the understanding and the trust that your plan will come to fruition. That success is only with you. This life isn't about having, your comforts and your pleasures, even though that's a byproduct. That's not what it's about. It's about how you put to the test and what choices you make when you're put to those tests. How you get out of your comfort zone in a society that's made up of all of these Jahiliyyah principles. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, reminds us that we have to center ourselves. The goal, the number one goal is the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and everything else can span and come and build from there, from that foundation, from that core. The earth without a core is just a ball of ice. So there's no way that someone can put their trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and their lives be able to and they be able to be content with how the environment is around them. As a Muslim, you can't do that without sacrificing the position that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made us responsible for as Khalifas on this earth. You would allow somebody else to lead you? How's that going? So what is our greatest power? That's what we have to ask ourselves. What is our greatest power? Our greatest power as human beings is the ability and the freedom to tell our own selves no. To check our own desires. What is La ilaha illallah? What is the La ilaha illallah way to think about things and systems that we hate the most in this world? So that we can truly change things for the better and live out our full potential. That's what we have to ask ourselves continuously. Islam will elevate you to your highest potential. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed every single one of us in this room with a special potential, a special power, a special something that He's created us with. It's up to us to find out what that is. LeBron James found out what his was. Steph Curry, they found out what theirs was. Right? And they're living to that highest pinnacle. Right? As the best in the world of what they do. They could have not never picked up a basketball, could have not never played any sport or anything, and then just, go about our life content with day-to-day operations. But they found something, and then they perfected it. They practiced it. They groomed it to become what it is today. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows us that when you use your potential, when you use your power and you groom that and you focus on that, you'll reach your highest of heights. Islam elevates us to this. So we have to ask ourselves, who do we work for? We work for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or do we work for something else? Are we working for profit? Are we working for comfort of this world? Are we working for material things? Are we working for the pleasure of others? Right? The pleasing of others. Who do we work for? Truth should make you wise. And that should bring you comfort and ease. That should bring you the comfort and ease you seek. Truth. Being at ease that you're aligned with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what we learn from the dua of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. No matter what he went through, the worst day of his life, as long as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with me and I'm aware of that truth, I'm aware of that understanding and that sincerity, I'm fine. Just whatever you have to throw at me, I'm fine. That's a peace that you can't buy. That's a security that you can't buy, you can't touch. And the Sahaba had it as well, as we see how Islam spreads throughout the world thereafter. So, a bird wakes up in the morning, no provisions, no nothing, but is centered around the basis of La ilaha illallah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides for it every day. It doesn't worry if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to provide for it. It goes out and seeks the provisions of Allah, right? And uses its potential, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created it for, and with, to go out and gain the pleasure or the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in food and berries, whatever it finds, right? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides. There is no questioning. Let us reflect on this. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار آمين. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد وهو على كل شيء قدير آمين. I wanted to read a verse from Surah Al-Bayna. In the last verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it clear. He says, He reveals, جزاؤهم عند ربهم جنات عدن تجري من تحتها الأنحار خالدين فيها أبدا رضي الله عنه ورضوا عنه ذلك لمن خشي ربه. In the translation, their reward with their Lord will be gardens of eternity, under which rivers flow to stay there forever and ever. Allah is pleased with them, and they are pleased with Him. This is only for those in awe of their Lord. If you don't have a passion in your life for the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you are not actually living life, you're just existing. So let us not get into the habit of repetition. Repeating the cycles of life, right? Knowing that it's not going to change anything. These animals do that. If their highest potential is the circle of life, right? An elephant or so finds food, make sure it has food so it can be strong enough to get a mate, make sure it has a mate so that it can have children, then make sure the children have food so they can be strong enough to grow up and get a mate, make sure they have a mate so they can get children, food, children, mate, right? Circle. Continuous. Animals can do that. We as human beings can do that, right? Go to a prestigious school and then get a good job so that I can get married. And then I get married so I can have children. Then I have children so that I can put them in a good school. Then a good school so they can get married and have children and put them in, right? And so on and so forth. We can live like that, but we won't reach our highest potential. No, we reach our highest potential when we have the goal of the continuous progression to gain the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That brings you outside of the cycle. That gives you a purpose greater than yourself. But it starts with yourself. You know, when Muslims took over the world and conquered different lands, Andalusia, in the Ottoman Empire, and taking over Persia and Rome. When they did this, only about 5 to 6% of the population were Muslim. They didn't go in and try to convert anybody. That wasn't the goal. They went in and they took on leadership positions, took over the country, and established truth at the highest of levels. And once they established that truth, people understood and could see clearly that Islam is the truth. Because what we had before is nothing like this. What we had before doesn't compare. People are in this society really think that the way society is shaped is just reality. It's the way it's supposed to be, with little tweaks and crumbs that they can give you and pass down just to make you happy, right? Make you content. Whereas if Muslims are in charge, we have to believe that we can bring the best out of this society and bring it to its greatest potential. That's why we're still here. That's why we don't leave. We can't leave. We have a duty, a responsibility to live and inherit the inheritance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made for us as khalifas on this earth. It'd be easy to leave, but we leaving our responsibility. You see how society is today, and you're displeased with it? Well, know that that's a reflection of our inability to act on our potential. That's a challenge to each and every one of you. What's your talent? Right? Like we said, LeBron James found his talent. You found yours? What's your highest potential? And how do you align that talent with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the pleasing and the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that we grow to the highest potential, so that we become the examples of society that we are meant to be, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has demanded of us, has put us here on this earth to be, and we will be tested. But when we have the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, these tests are minuscule. We've allowed oppressors and corruptors to create the realities of our society, to dictate what the standards are of morality. But we as Muslims, We have to break that. How do we break that? We don't break it by taking something that we just copy off of the disbelievers, taking a system, taking a business that we just copy off of them and then slapping Islam onto it and say, oh, it's Muslim now. No. We reshape the way it works fundamentally based off of the sunnah of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and our alignment with the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It should be coming up with new things, new way of thinking of things, new system. We don't have to repeat what they did in Andalusia when the first original revolution, our industrial revolution happened, where arts and sciences prevailed. We can learn from what they did. We can learn from the greatness of history and implement it here in our own way. Right? That's why it's not enough for us to just stick to one madhab. When we have a society in which we should be held responsible for coming together and making our own madhab, making our own understanding of how we apply the sunnah of our Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Quran to our day-to-day life, and how the world is reshaping, how we keep up with that. Because the Quran and the sunnah are timeless. They're timeless if you understand them. But most people don't understand these things, and so they think that it's something separate. It's nothing separate. We have the answers to every issue, to every situation, to every problem that our society has. We should be coming to the masjid to strategize how it is we're going to use Islam to fix these problems. Not just for the Muslims, for the greater society. 5%, 6% of Muslims in these countries that are taken over. And then it turns into a majority Muslim country. Not out of nowhere, because the leaders, they put themselves in leadership position and they establish truth. And people recognize truth. Truth knocks out falsehood. So we must seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in everything that we do. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy and that we won't be continuously tested. It wasn't easy back then. You think it was easy for somebody to get their freedom as a slave in this country and then go back and try to free other people? Think that was easy? But what does that look like in today's time? History repeats itself in many ways, subtle ways. What's it look like in today's time? I want to really paint the picture of how it is you're going to have to really shape your mind to get off of these chains that they put us in society. So think about how fast your heart's going to beat if you're put in a situation where ICE is coming to arrest some immigrants and you have to take the immigrants and hide them in your home. Because you know they're good people. Because you know they haven't done anything wrong. You know, I saw a little girl. 12-year-old girl, and she's just bawling her eyes out, crying on the news. Young Hispanic girl, and she's crying and pleading. She's saying they took her parents away. They took my parents away. They didn't, and she's sad. I didn't do anything wrong. They didn't do anything wrong. They took my parents. How am I going to feed myself? She's the head of the house now. A 12-year-old little girl. How am I going to feed myself? What am I going to do for work? What time? We have the answers. We have the responsibility to fix the issues and what we don't like most about society. As soon as the Prophet got to Medina, he established a marketplace where they didn't have to depend on interest and corruption. They didn't have to depend on inflation and ill business practices. No, they just established what it was that they were supposed to establish in the first place. We have to look at what we're doing. What are we doing? And that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. One last point. When we look at Moses and Khadir, the wise man, Moses thought that he was the wisest in the world. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent revelation saying, no, there's somebody that's wiser than you. And Moses wanted to learn from that man. He wanted to learn. But when he got to him, Khayr told him, you will not be able to be patient with me. How are we patient? How can we be patient in a society where a dictator is causing havoc? But patience doesn't mean that you don't act. Many times people see Moses questioning this man, and then the man saying, condemning him that, hey, you're not supposed to question me, right? You won't have patience with me. They see it as a flaw in Moses' character. No. Moses is a wise man, and he understands that if he sees an injustice, he has to question it, no matter what. He can't just say nothing, and he's there in the thick of it. He has to question. He knows this man is the wisest man, wiser than him. He's reminded repeatedly, but he still questions. The angels know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they question, why would you put human beings here on this earth with free will as they can go to war with each other and cause corruption in the land? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells them, I know what you know not. He doesn't condemn them for asking the question. We're supposed to ask the question. We're supposed to seek knowledge. We're supposed to seek the answers. But he knows what you know not. So we're never ever at fear of anything that comes about our way. We're never worried or concerned with any dictator or with whoever is in power. We have our responsibility knowing that if our goals, if our core principles align with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we're going to be a part of that success that's inevitable to come. Period. I'll end on this quote. A couple weeks ago, a lot of people were pardoned that led an insurrection on the Capitol, right? Led a coup. It's treason. I think treason in this country is still punishable by death, or it was. But these people are let go, right? And one of them is a leader of the Proud Boys. He's an African American man. So when we talk about repetition of history, it doesn't always repeat itself in the same way. It's not always going to be some race war or whatever. It's probably going to be left against right? And on a political spectrum, we have to think about these things. History repeats itself, but it's in different subtle ways, right? This African American man, and you know what he said when he got out? He said, we're going to use these 4 years to set ourselves up for the next 100 years. We're going to use these 4 years to set ourselves up for the next 100 years. What are we doing? What's our 100-year strategy? What's our 200-year strategy, our 300-year strategy? We read the Surah Al-Kahf every Friday. How are we enacting on it? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed that the children of the cave, or the people of the cave, they slept for 309 years. And they didn't believe that their society could change. And he showed them that he is in power. His plan will come to fruition. The success will come regardless if you're asleep or awake. How are you going to align your will with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so that you're not on the opposite side of that? And you have something to show for it on the day of judgment. So let us be reminded and conscious of this and align. Use our talents to align our will with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's will. And Allah make it easy for us. Ameen. O Allah, place within our hearts light, and upon our tongues light, and within our ears light, and within our eyes light, and place behind us light, and place in front of us light, and above us light, and beneath us light. O Allah, bestow upon us light. O Allah, bless us to be guided by this light in the grave and the hereafter and in this life, and make it easy for us to follow your guidance and gain your pleasure. Ameen. We'll do announcements right after prayer, and we have a shahada after prayer as well, so please stick around for that as well.
الله أكبر لا أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
Ready? Allahu Akbar. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا عنك وزرك الذي عنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
تكبير.
الله أكبر.
تكبير.
الله أكبر.
تكبير.
الله Akbar. Please stay for announcements. Please make dua for all the sick and shut-in. A family asked for your duas for their Zayd Hamza Adin, who passed. Janazah was held on February 5th. His mother and father and sister are here today, and cousins and brothers and uncle. Please keep him in your du'as. Please pay your zakat and sadaqah at Majeed-The or Cash App at $MAS Zakat. Brothers meeting tomorrow following Fajr Salat and Mecca meeting afterwards. Cruise is meeting tomorrow at 11 a.m. Our service, I don't know why I keep saying cruise. Service is meets tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Health and Wellness Committee will be selling dinners next Friday after Jumuah. You can pre-order yours today. See Sister Kimberly Akbar and others members on the committee. Camp Connections is looking for application for a position of camp director. If you're interested, please speak to Sister Teresa Mutakabir by April 5th, in 2 months. There will be no Strongin School this Sunday. There will be a Imam staff meeting instead. And there will be Islam 101 for Talim. So any new Muslims or old Muslims, whoever wants to gain some knowledge, come to Talim. It's at 1 o'clock, 12:30 for Islam 101. And then we'll have Surah class of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. And next Jumu'ah next Friday at the same time as this Friday. We also have a Shahada. Somebody wants to take their Shahada today? Please come up to the front. You want to do it? Yeah. How you doing? You ready?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Can you tell everybody your name, please?
My name is Tyreek.
Tyreek?
Yes, sir.
And is anybody forcing you or making you come here and do this today?
No, sir.
All right. So free will. He's coming and to convert to Al-Islam. All right. So it's going to be real simple. You just repeat after me. We'll say it in Arabic first, and then we'll say it in English. Okay. Ashhadu
Ashhadu
in la
illa
ilaha
ilaha
illallah
illallah
wa ashhadu
wa ashhadu
anna
anna
Muhammadan
Muhammadan
Rasulullah.
Rasulullah.
That is, I bear witness
I bear witness
there is no God
there is no God
except Allah,
except Allah,
and I bear witness
and I bear witness
that Muhammad
that Muhammad
is his servant and messenger.
is his servant and messenger.
Takbir! 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 Now, are you coming from a Christian background?
Yes, sir.
All right, so we add this to the assertion is that I bear witness
I bear witness
that Jesus
that Jesus
is not the Son of God.
is not the Son of God.
I bear witness
I bear witness
that Jesus
that Jesus
is the messenger of Allah.
is the messenger of Allah.
All right, takbir, takbir, takbir. So my brother Tariq, right?
Correct.
Tariq, he is now a new Muslim. His sins have been washed away. He is just as pure as an angel, right? And he has A in his class to start from here, right? He has 100. He has 100, right?
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, and so to symbolize that, you go home, you take a shower, you wash, and you cleanse yourself. It's a new beginning for you. SubhanAllah, please, brothers, welcome our brother to Islam.
Thank you.
Be the first two. Appreciate you coming out and give your information to Ibn so that you can get connected with all the other new converts. Inshallah. Thank you.
Get your information. Sure. When is the 3 on Sunday the 16th?
Assalamu alaikum. Youth that like to play basketball, we having a 3-on-3 basketball tournament. 3-on-3 basketball tournament on Sunday the 16th. So that'll be next weekend, inshallah. On Sunday the 16th, the youth basketball tournament, 3-on-3. This is going to be at the Huntersville Rec Center, starting at 10 a.m. So if you're interested in the youth 3-on-3 basketball tournament, you can call the phone number 347-578-2056, or just show up at the Rec Center, Huntersville Rec Center on Sunday morning, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah, inshallah.
Now you're not gonna show out like you did last year.
I'm gonna be calm. I'm gonna be calm. Yeah, inshallah. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and the men. This is an invitation for our Super Bowl gathering here this Sunday, beginning at 6:30 to 7 o'clock. Come and bring a dish. We'll have an opportunity to be on a big screen and share that time of fellowship together watching the Super Bowl game. Alhamdulillah.
In the state, they do it in the state, right? You know, some states you can just go like to the courthouse, marry you. North Carolina, each state, you go to the courthouse for 4th Street, a temporary marriage permit. That marriage permit is 6 days to get married. So you have to go to a member of clergy, like Majeed-The, you got 6 days to get married. We have the marriage ceremony, we fill it out, both you and your bride, and witnesses have to sign, and you take that back to the courthouse, and they give you your marriage certificate. So we prefer to do that with the Islamic marriage ceremony within that exchange information. So, what do you think? You because if you get that document, you have to take it. I got to bring it with me.